The little plug-in box that promises to slash your power bill usually does almost nothing, yet a dirt-cheap device built on a completely different idea can wipe out real waste on the right appliance so effectively that utilities have used the same principle for decades. Not on every home and not on every load, but enough to make this uncomfortable. Because the profitable version of this story is buy a smarter house, while the unprofitable version is control time. One costs hundreds, the other can cost less than lunch. So why were homeowners sold miracle boxes while the grid itself quietly used scheduled shutoffs, load shifting, and thermal storage in the background? Hold that question, because the answer gets ugly when the money shows up. Let's start with the mainstream trap, those so-called electricity saver devices sold with glowing LEDs, fake lab language, and absurd claims like 20% or 24% savings just by plugging them into the wall. Inside, many of them are basically a cheap capacitor in a plastic shell. That matters because your house is typically billed for real energy, measured in kilowatt hours, not for the imaginary fantasy in the ad copy. Here's the mechanical reason they fail. A capacitor can sometimes nudge power factor in certain systems, which matters in some industrial settings. Your home is different. Residential meters usually charge for active power, the electricity that actually becomes heat, motion, light, or cooling. If your biggest loads are resistance heaters, water heaters, ovens, dryers, toasters, and old-school incandescent bulbs, a capacitor does not stop those devices from converting the same amount of electricity into the same amount of heat. The current waveform might look prettier on paper. Your meter usually does not care. The appliance still burns the watts. That is not speculation. In a court case, cited by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, a plug-in power saver was found not capable of reducing the real electrical power consumed by domestic users, even though it was marketed as saving up to 24%. The court ordered corrective action because consumers were being misled about savings that would not appear on normal household bills. Meanwhile, the waste people should be focused on is painfully ordinary. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory measured standby power in homes and found an average of 67 watts, with some houses as high as 169 watts. That standby drain represented 5% to 26% of annual electricity use in the homes studied, 26%, not from some exotic machine. From devices sitting there, quietly nibbling around the clock. So homeowners get baited into buying a fake correction box, while the actual bill keeps swelling from endless runtime, reheating cycles, and always-on electronics. That is the part that should irritate you. The industry did not just sell the wrong answer. It sold a useless answer to people asking the right question. The real low-cost tool is much less glamorous, a 1.5 amp grounded electromechanical interval timer. Sometimes it is sold as a basic 2-4 hour plug-in timer with pins, tabs, or a rotating dial. No app, no cloud login, no blue LED theater. And unlike the scam box, this one works through brutal simplicity. It physically opens the circuit during hours when an appliance does not need to run. That sounds almost insultingly basic, but the physics are solid. If a device is off, it is not drawing real power. Zero draw beats theoretical correction every time. Now let's get precise. There are two kinds of savings here. The first is standby elimination. If your entertainment stack, coffee station, aquarium light bank, charger cluster, or decorative appliance keeps sipping power all night, a scheduled shutoff erases those hours completely. No vampire load, no hidden idle burn, just dead silence at the outlet. The second is cycle suppression on thermally buffered loads. That is where this becomes more interesting. Electric resistance devices generate heat through joule heating. Current passes through a resistive element, often nichrome or a similar alloy, and electrical energy becomes thermal energy. If that heat is stored in something with mass water in a tank, a heating block, a towel rail, a ceramic body, even some humidification systems, the device does not need to run continuously to remain useful. The thermostat waits, the temperature drifts, then the element kicks back on. Every unnecessary reheating cycle is billable. A timer removes entire blocks of those reheats. That is why water heating matters so much. The U.S. Department of Energy says water heating accounts for about 18% of a home's energy use, making it typically the second largest energy expense. In other words, one category inside your house is already large enough to matter before you even touch heating and cooling. And here is the deeper layer. Utilities know this load is flexible. A Department of Energy Energy Codes brief states that electric storage water heaters provide an excellent opportunity for load shedding and load shifting because the hot water itself stores energy. Think about how revealing that sentence is. Your tank is not just a heater, it is a thermal battery with plumbing. Energy Star's own connected water heater materials describe the exact control logic utilities use at scale: shape, shift, shed, and shimmy. They literally discuss turning water heaters off during critical peaks, topping them off ahead of time, and moving reheating into off-peak windows. That is the same principle as the cheap mechanical timer, just wrapped in higher-end controls and utility communication standards. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. Stay with me. The buried part is not that the principle was unknown. It was known so well that entire institutions organized around it. The dumb version for homeowners never became glamorous because it is boring, narrow, and brutally honest. It only works on the right loads. It will not save a dime on a device that already needs to run continuously for safety, precision, or comfort. It can be useless on the wrong appliance. That limitation is exactly why trust matters here. Historically, this idea sits on two old foundations. One is 19th century electrical science. James Prescott Joule's work established the heat relationship that makes resistance loads predictable. The other is 20th century load management. As utilities tried to flatten peaks and make generation assets work more smoothly, they learned that storage heaters and water heaters could be controlled without immediately ruining comfort because the stored heat bridges the gap. Today's smart demand response is the polished descendant of that old insight. And that is the secret most viewers never hear in plain English. The scam device tries to alter the electrical story without changing runtime, while the real device changes runtime directly. One argues with the meter. The other starves the meter. There is another twist. Lawrence Berkeley's standby research showed that idle consumption can reach a shockingly large share of annual use in some homes, but a timer does not rescue you unless you attach it to the right offender. A phone charger brick is trivial. A heated feature, circulation device, dehumidifier, always-on media cluster, or timer-compatible resistance load can be meaningful. The hardware is cheap. The thinking is the expensive part. So, no, the magic is not inside the gadget. The leverage is in the match between the gadget and the load. Now follow the money. Edison Electric Institute says investor-owned electric companies generated $403 billion in total energy operating revenues in 2024. That does not mean every utility behaves identically. And some states use regulatory decoupling that softens the direct link between sales volume and profits. Still, we are talking about a system measured in hundreds. If you want more of this kind of low-cost knowledge, subscribe. Channels that expose cheap fixes get buried for the same reason cheap fixes do. They do not feed billion-dollar ecosystems. Hitting that button is not support for me. It is a vote against profitable confusion. Step 1. Choose the right target. Use this only on plug-in timer-compatible loads first. Look for appliances that waste money through idle time, reheating cycles, or unnecessary overnight operation. Entertainment clusters, charger stations, decorative heating features, towel warmers, some dehumidifiers, pumps, aquarium lighting, or similar equipment with predictable downtime. If you are thinking about an electric storage water heater, do not use a $5 outlet timer. That job requires a properly listed water heater timer, and in most homes, a licensed electrician. Never use scheduled shutoff on medical gear, sump pumps, networking you must keep live, or portable space heaters left unattended. Step 2. Read the nameplate before you buy anything. Flip the appliance around and find the electrical label. If the device is above 15 amps or above 1,875 watts at 125 volts, stop. Your timer must be rated at or above the appliance load, and the plug should match exactly. If the label is faded, dusty, or hidden behind warm plastic, wipe it clean and read it with a flashlight. This is the point where a smart person becomes a safe person. Step 3. Pick a schedule that removes waste without hurting the job. Start conservative. For a media console or charger cluster, try 11:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. For a towel warmer, maybe 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. when nobody is home. For a dehumidifier in a basement that stays dry overnight, begin with 2-3 hour off windows and watch humidity for a week. If a device depends on temperature, use actual limits. Food spaces must stay at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius or below in the fridge, and 0 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 18 degrees Celsius in the freezer. So do not experiment there unless you are measuring. For water heater systems handled by a pro, a common starting point is cutting 6 to 8 overnight hours while keeping tank temperature around 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which also aligns with scald prevention guidance. Step 4. Program the timer physically. Set the current time, then push down the tabs or lift the pins for the off periods. You should feel a firm click. It should sound mechanical, not mushy. Plug the timer into the wall, then the appliance into the timer. When the switch changes over, you may hear a tiny snap from inside the dial mechanism. That is normal. What you should not smell is hot insulation, melting plastic, or anything burnt. If you do, unplug it instantly. Step 5. Verify the device actually turns fully off. Watch the target during one scheduled cut window. The screen should go dark, the fan should stop, the compressor should rest, or the heating indicator should disappear. Touch the appliance casing after shutdown. It should gradually cool, not keep humming along like nothing changed. If the appliance has memory settings, make sure it restarts correctly when power returns. Some electronics fail this test. Good! Better to learn it in 10 minutes than after a ruined routine. Step 6. Measure results for 7 to 14 days. Use your utility portal, a smart outlet if you already own one, or a before and after meter reading from the same weather period. Look for reduced runtime, lower overnight load, or fewer reheating cycles. On the right target, the difference is visible fast. On the wrong one, it will be noise. That is not failure. That is data. Step 7. Expand only after one clear win. Once one schedule works, add another compatible load. Do not scatter timers across the house like confetti. Build a short list of offenders and treat them one by one. The most useful sign is sensory. A room that used to feel slightly warm from phantom devices now feels still, quieter, cooler, and electrically dead during the off block. 2 honest caveats. First, this will not cut every household bill in half. It can slash the waste from specific loads, sometimes dramatically, but homes dominated by HVAC, EV charging, electric cooking, or large dryers may see only modest total savings. Second, the wrong application can cost comfort, convenience, or safety. That is why the boring phrase compatible load matters more than the exciting phrase cheap device. Trust the principle, respect the limits. The ugliest part of this story is not the scam box. It is the system that made fake complexity easier to sell than honest simplicity. Utilities and manufacturers understand controlled load shifting perfectly well because they already use it in modern demand response and grid planning. Consumers were just handed the flashy myth instead of the narrow truth. So remember the real lesson. Your electric bill is not only about how much power your house uses, it is also about when your appliances are allowed to use it and who benefits when you never learn that distinction. Next time, I'm showing you the hidden reasons some efficient homes still bleed money through a part of the house inspectors barely mention. Cheap fixes threaten expensive systems.